what's checking, everybody? Happy Friday evening to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Jason Sucamel. We've got a little bit of breaking news here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel on this Friday night. Do us a solid, like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, get notifications, tell friends and family. Do all that stuff that we ask you to do all the time. No, you don't have to insert the Alex screaming subscribe to the channel, damn it, video. Not this time, Blake. The Longhorns have picked up number 13 on the commitment list, Jason. Aeryn Hampton, a kind of do-it-all athlete from Daingerfield, four-star guy, commits to the Longhorns this evening, moments ago. I'm curious, when I say Aeryn Hampton is committed to the Longhorns, what is kind of the first thing that pops into your mind?
You know, a couple things, Catch. First off, I know you and I love these Friday night and 4th of July evening announcements, right? Nothing we love better than the guy.
I said on the radio today that I was going to drop Jordan Washington in my next rankings for making us work on the 4th.
Yeah, he committed like, what, 7:30 on 4th of July or something. But that aside, Aeryn Hampton, we've kind of been hinting on Orange Bloods that this was coming for really ever since he took his official visit to Texas in late June. He kind of told me off the record, yeah, it's trending strongly towards Texas. The question that Longhorn fans and OrangeBloods.com readers have been posing to me is like, okay, is he going to stick? Is he going to sign with Texas? Because he's been committed to Texas previously. He was committed back in 2022, and he ended up decommitting in November of 2022. Opened up his recruitment, took a bunch of other visits, flirted heavily, of course, with Alabama. Everybody says, hey, is he going to stick this time? Is he going to sign with Texas? My thinking is, yeah, man, he really took his time with this one, slowed things down, whittled it down to 2 schools, Texas and Alabama. And his mind has been made up for a while. Like we found out, he's been committed since, I think, even really before his official visit on June 23rd. So this one's been in the bag for a while. I understand why people are asking that question. He's been committed before. He was committed to Baylor before his first commitment to Texas. Now this is his second commitment to Texas. I do expect it to stick. I think Aeryn Hampton will be a Longhorn, will sign with Texas. And Texas likes him. It's interesting. If you watch his film, it's 95% of him working as a wide receiver, maybe a little bit in the return game, just racing up and down the field. Texas is actually recruiting him. Terry Joseph, Blake Gideon, recruiting him as a defensive back, but a guy who will get a chance to maybe, have a splash play or two on offense. So we've got him listed as an athlete, but primarily he is coming in, we'll see if that changes, but he is coming in as a defensive back.
Yeah, you actually segued very nicely into the thing that pops into my mind when I kind of think of Hampton first off. Now, before we get into that real quick, I have him. So here are his national rankings. It's been pretty rare this year with the Texas commitments that all of the recruiting services have all liked a guy at the same time. Jarrett Gibson comes to mind, but there are a lot of guys at 2 services really like him. And, our most recent video that we did, Jason, with Jordan Washington, he has 2 of the 4 services don't even have him ranked. So it's interesting that with Hampton, Rivals has him at 150th overall nationally. ESPN has him at 145 overall nationally. On3 has him at 145 overall nationally. 24/7 has him at 185 overall nationally. And the 24/7 composite adds up to 154 overall nationally. So
those are remarkably consistent, because you're right. Usually there's usually one outlier at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Huh. He's ranked between 145 and 185 nationally for everybody. And yet, for a guy that's that well liked nationally, I'm not quite sure I know what I think Texas should do with his commitment. I love taking kids from East Texas, and it's important every year that you sign a handful of guys from East Texas. You always have to have roots in East Texas, the same way that you need to have roots in the Metroplex and the greater Houston area. So this is a flagpole in East Texas for the Longhorns this year to get somebody from Daingerfield High School. I can't quite I think I personally like him at wide receiver more than defensive back, mainly because I can kind of envision him. I think he's a better high school wide receiver than defensive back. If you watch his highlight film, 90% of it is at wide receiver. He'd be kind of a smaller DB, which isn't, to me, he doesn't quite fit the physical profile of the guys that we typically see Texas. Think about them going after Selman Bridges. They've got, these are all bigger, taller, more physical guys, and yet they want to start him on defense. I'm really fascinated to see what they do with him once he gets on campus.
Well, a couple thoughts. At one time, Looking Catch, Rivals at one time had him ranked as high as number 26 in the country.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I do agree with you. I think he's a better receiver than defensive back right now. I mean, if you watch his film, he has really good ball skills. He's really good after the catch. I saw him at the state 7-on-7 tournament a few weeks ago over in College Station, and he did what he does what you'd expect him to do against smaller classification. Daingerfield's 3A. I mean, he just makes it look easy, but he's not maybe an elite athlete when I say in terms of speed or quickness, but he's has a good feel for the game after the catch when he gets the ball in his hands. He can make guys miss in a phone booth, and then it's off to the races. And at the high school level, they can't catch him. He is smaller. You're right, compared to the kind of this new wave of defensive backs we're seeing. Not just Texas, but everybody is taking these 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" guys. He's listed at 5'11", 180. Like I said, I just saw him in person. He is a lot more compact than those other guys we're talking about. Selman Bridges is tall, but incredibly long and lean. Aeryn Hampton's a lot more compact. So what does that mean? Is he more of a safety potentially if they're going to put him at defensive back? Is he a nickel guy? I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm with you, though, man. Listen, hey, Texas coaches know more than I do, certainly, but I think he would be a pretty darn good slot receiver. But I think Texas also has no shortage of receiver options coming in and going to be on the roster. So, I don't know where you find a home for Aeryn Hampton, but he's a good enough player. Alabama really wanted him. Don't let any Alabama people tell you now that he's committed to Texas, oh, Alabama didn't really push. No, that's hogwash. Alabama really wanted him. If Alabama really wants you, Texas really wants you. Those guys know what they're doing, and he'll find a spot, and I think it's probably going to be at defensive back. I'm just not exactly sure where in that secondary he lines up.
I'm on live, sweetie.
I'm sorry.
Had to let my wife know to stop talking to me while we're in the middle of doing a video. Sometimes it happens. And here come the dogs. It's a Friday night at the Ketchum household.
The beauty of live broadcast, right?
I think I like him in the slot. It's interesting. He's not an elite, explosive athlete the same way I think about an Xavier Worthy, where you think about as a junior running a 10-500 meters. Last year, he didn't run track this year. Last year, his best 100-meter time was 11.7.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wished he'd run track. I think he's a better athlete than that, but the stopwatch doesn't completely lie. And when you watch him on film, there are times when he just doesn't run away from guys the way that, quite frankly, somebody with a truly elite speed would.
We're not talking 6A football either.
He's super, but he's really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And my first instinct is put that kid on punt returns and let's start there, because I think he's good in space. He makes guys miss. He is quicker than he is fast, but I think he'll prove to have pretty decent speed at the wide receiver when it's all said and done. I kind of like him competing with DeAndre Moore and Ryan Niblett in the slot after Jordan Whittington departs, because when I think about how he hits the field the fastest, I almost think that's more doable earlier than it might be for him to go to the slot, where it's very possible that a guy like Jalen Gilbo reestablishes himself coming off of injury, and you think of him as a multi-year starter in the future. And it just might be that there's more of a log jam at that nickel position. Although maybe they play him at safety.
Some of these, maybe I think at safety he could be a more natural fit, but some of these same things were said about Jalen Gilbo coming out of high school too, that he's not elite quickness and things of that nature. And Jalen had a pretty good freshman
and
season.
They're ranked about the same coming out of high school. Like both of them,
they're both very instinctual players too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I love about Hampton. Like you said, I mean, he can make people miss in small spaces. He just has a good feel for what's going on around him, and there's things like that you just can't coach. Just a good feel for what's going on around you. And I think,
I think he may be a better, more natural receiver than either DeAndre Moore or Ryan Niblett. I think those guys are faster and more explosive. I think Hampton is a guy who's quicker. I think he's more sure-handed. I mean, the kid, if you get it near him, he catches the football. He actually has a bunch of like short catches that are actually pretty spectacular catches because the ball's either just way outside of what you would think his catch radius is, or he's alongside the sideline boundary. I don't know. Like I know why they would like him as a secondary piece. I do wonder if it's going to be more of a log jam in the secondary with back-to-back. You and I've talked about this may be a defensive back class that has 6 guys in it, maybe more if you're including Hampton, who, if we just set aside for a second and say he's a pure athlete, I don't know. This will eventually be a program where it's survival of the fittest, and either you're great or at least really, really good, or you're not going to play. And I think whether we look at him as a slot receiver and or someone in the secondary at potentially a variety of positions, the competition that all of these guys have to face. I mean, these guys will have to deal with Aeryn Hampton. He'll be part of this discussion. But when we talk about projecting how soon they can play, it really is going to just come down to, are you better than the other really, really highly ranked recruit that Steve Sarkisian will have competing for playing time very quickly? I mean, when this class gets on campus, I think they're pretty loaded in terms of young talent.
Well, certainly at the 2 positions we're talking about, and that's a sign of a healthy program, though, right? That's the problems you want to have is you got too many guys battling out, and the cream's going to elevate to the top as opposed to having holes in your roster. So, Hampton could be a guy that really excels early, as you said, on special teams catch. Maybe that gives him a little bit of time to kind of settle in somewhere. But, it's a good problem to have. You're right. He's not Ryan. He's a totally different football player than Ryan Niblett as a receiver. Niblett's ultra athletic, ultra fast, ultra quick. Hampton's probably got more natural ball skills from what I can see. Different style players, same as in the secondary. I mean, we mentioned, some of these DBs they're taking and the guys they took last year. He's a different style of player, but that doesn't mean his style isn't going to be the one that ends up winning out. I mean, he's a high caliber player. Again, national top 150, long list of offers, whittled it down to Texas and Alabama. So I think this is a really good pickup for Texas. It's just hard to kind of forecast, and you look in there and say, okay, this is exactly how this is going to unfold. He's going to do this for the first year, and then by year 2, he's in this position, and here's his future. It's hard to forecast, but he's a good enough football player, just pure football player, and a pretty good athlete to go along with it, that you just bring him in and kind of let the pieces fall where they may and figure it out.
I think we may need to see this season play out, because I don't know what Jelani McDonald completely, you know what I mean? There are guys that they've signed. McDonald has mentioned in the past they want to use him potentially as a nickel guy. Mm-hmm. He's insanely different than Aeryn Hampton is. And so I'm curious to see how all of the pieces from this last recruiting class kind of fall. And then I think even in a month from now, when we kind of get an idea of the depth chart, we'll know potentially what it really looks like for Hampton when he comes in. Right now, it just feels like Texas has a pile of secondary guys, and I'm not quite sure where they're all going to fit. Whereas at the wide receiver position, it does feel a little more determined in terms of where guys might line up. Although, again, I don't doubt Sark's ability to recruit and want even more wide receiver talent We know they're going to continue to try to go there in this class and load up with guys, big-time guys if they can. So whether that's Hudson, whether that's Ryan Wingo, whether that's someone that emerges over the course of this season, it's certainly not beyond this staff to just like take a flyer on a guy. So yeah, healthy. We thought the same thing about Tom Herman when he was recruiting early on, that wide receiver and DB were just loaded, and it never quite worked out that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's benefit of the doubt, Jason, that I'm giving Sarkisian and this kind of collection of talent, because we're saying the same thing. Feels a little more real this time. I don't know if it's because got the names like Jonte Cook and Derek Williams are in my brain, but Texas is going to be really good and really athletic at the skill positions on both sides of the ball, really in all three phases, special teams as well, in ways that should help it compete really well at the SEC level.
It's a more wide receiver friendly offense for sure under Sark than Tom Herman. You know, they don't rotate in 25 guys like Herman and his staff did, which is maddening to me. So, you know, you've got your top tier guys, and you know, if we're talking about Jonte Cook or Bubba Hampton as a defensive back or a wide receiver potentially, but yeah, I mean, it seems like I understand what you're saying. I mean, Herman, yeah, he did load up at a large number of receivers, but I don't think they were the across the board elite kind of talent that we're seeing Steve Sarkisian reel in.
I'm working on an article for Orange Bloods right now, and it's a look back at the wide receiver position. It's like, woo, oh my God, because you're like Avante Woodard, Joshua Moore, you know,
a lot of those guys were highly regarded, but
Brennan Eagles, you know what I mean? Like it seemed like they were stacking them up, and it didn't turn out that way. And yet already just with one guy and Jonte Cook, it feels like the future in terms of young guys at the position is going to be real in ways that just never, you know, those guys were as good as everybody thought they were going to be. Tom Herman might still be coaching at Texas. That they weren't was a big reason why he didn't hold his job on both sides of the ball, quite frankly. All right, guys, do us a solid. It's Friday night. We're working. Give us a like. Don't make us beg for it. All right. We're not begging. We're asking politely. Click on that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. We do videos like this all the time. Whenever there's breaking news, we're around. That's what we do. We entertain, we inform, and occasionally we look stupid. It's all part of the plan. Jason, enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us in the chat. Sorry we didn't get to any of your questions today. We just wanted to knock this out, have a real good Aeryn Hampton discussion, kind of go on with the rest of our Friday night. So you guys have a great one. Assuming there is no more breaking news, we'll see you on Monday for the Monday Overreaction Show. However, Jason's getting ready to hop on an airplane in a day, which means anything is possible. And when he goes on vacation, anything is possible. Just know that for the next 6 or 7 days, there could be full moons. There could be out of the blue commitments. It's all part of the fun of when Jason tries to get a little rest and relaxation. But Jason, enjoy your vacation. And everybody out there, have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. Later.